Shuffle. Shuffle.
So here we are.
Welcome back. This podcast that you're about to listen was actually created using Google's newest AI tool. And I'm going to pop up a video here on screen because in this video, I actually showed you exactly how to use this particular tool to create podcasts like the one you're about to watch. And you can do so with a simple sentence with one click in a few minutes. And guess what? It's free. And I'm going to link that video that explains how to create podcasts like this in the description of this video. So you can quickly go down, click it, and it will take you to my other channel, Odetta Rockhead. And there you learn how to create podcasts like this and also how to use these podcasts to make money. Now, I was completely blown away by the technology. And again, when you listen to this podcast, I know you're going to think it's humans talking, but it's not. And to keep it a little bit entertaining, I have a workout video where I was trying to work out. Let me rephrase it. So I'm gonna overlay the video on the podcast, so at least you're watching something while you're listening. And the podcast is about tips for loving yourself unconditionally. It was actually extracted. I basically copied a section of my book, No Regrets, Just Lessons, and I used that in the Google AI tool. And just from the words, it generated this entire podcast about self-love. And I kind of think it's appropriate that I'm working out and the podcast is about loving yourself unconditionally and tips to doing so. So enjoy the podcast discussions and remember to keep in mind that it was created entirely by AI and none of what you're hearing is the voice of a real human being.
Come on in, let's talk today. Questions answered every way. Knowledge shared with laugh and play. Odetta united, hey. From your screen right to your heart, every story's just a start. Education's now an art, let's all take part. Empower, educate, entertain. Every question, every gain. Together we can reach the sky. Odetta's here to help you fly. Come on in, let's talk today. Questions answered every way. Knowledge shared with laugh and play. Odetta united, hey. Screen right to your heart. Every story's just a start. Education's now an art. Let's all take part. Empower, educate, entertain. Every question.
Round one. Lady, go!
Ever crack open a self-help book and you're like, okay, where's the real talk? And enough with the rainbows and affirmations. Give me the nitty-gritty on self-love.
Right. Like, how do we actually do this self-love thing in a way that feels real and, I don't know, maybe a little less cheesy?
That's exactly why we're diving into No Regrets, Just Lessons by Odetta Rockhead. She's all about ditching those cliches and getting real about self-respect. And let me tell you, this woman doesn't sugarcoat a thing.
I love that about her. It's so refreshing to hear someone talk about self-love in a way that feels like down to earth and relatable.
Totally. And one of the first things that really struck me was her take on forgiveness. But she's not just talking about forgiving others, she's talking about forgiving yourself.
Oh, that's huge, because I think so many of us get stuck in these cycles of guilt and shame, replaying those oops moments over and over again.
100%. We all have those cringeworthy memories we wish we could erase. Those reply-all disasters, those times we totally forgot an important date.
Or said the wrong thing at the worst possible time.
Ugh, the worst. But Odetta's point is, it's not about dwelling in that guilt. It's about recognizing that we're human, we mess up, and the important thing is to learn from it and move on.
So how does she say we do that? How do we actually forgive ourselves for those moments when we're like, oh, I wish I could just rewind time?
Well, she talks about the difference between taking responsibility and getting trapped in a cycle of guilt. Like, yeah, you messed up, acknowledge it, learn from it, but don't beat yourself up over it.
That's so key. It's that whole progress, not perfection thing. We're allowed to make mistakes as long as we're learning and growing along the way.
Totally. And once you've started to let go of that guilt, Odetta says it's time to shift your focus to something pretty amazing. You.
It's like she's giving you permission to finally go on that long overdue date, but with the coolest person you know, yourself.
I love that analogy. And you know what? It's so true. We're so busy taking care of everyone else, we often forget to nurture our own interests and passions.
It's like we put ourselves on the back burner, and then we wonder why we feel so depleted and disconnected.
Absolutely. And that's where that me time comes in. And it's not selfish, it's essential.
It's about remembering what brings you joy, what makes your soul sing.
And once you've reconnected with that inner spark, watch out, world.
Right. It's like you've unleashed this whole new level of energy and confidence.
Okay, so we're forgiving ourselves, we're exploring our interest, but then there's that voice in our heads. It's like, yeah, but.
Oh, you mean that inner critic that loves to chime in with some not so nice commentary? We all have one.
Oh, tell me about it. And Odetta does not hold back when it comes to tackling that little voice of negativity.
No, she does not. She basically calls us out on our BS and says, you're doing it wrong.
And the thing is, she's right. We've been conditioned to focus on our flaws, to constantly criticize ourselves. But it's actually rewiring our brains for unhappiness.
There's actual science behind this. It's called neuroplasticity, and it basically means our brains are like Play-Doh. They're constantly changing based on our thoughts and experiences.
So if we're constantly feeding ourselves negative thoughts, our brains are like, okay, cool, this is how we roll now.
Exactly. But the good news is we can use that same neuroplasticity to our advantage by focusing on positive self-talk and celebrating our wins, no matter how small they might seem.
And that's where Odetta's whole celebrate everything philosophy comes in.
She's all about shifting that energy from woe is me to heck yeah, I did that.
Instead of dwelling on what we haven't accomplished, it's about acknowledging and appreciating those little victories that add up over time.
Because they do add up. Each little celebration is like a deposit in your self-love bank account.
I love that. And it makes so much sense. If we can train our brains to focus on the good stuff, we'll start to see ourselves and the world in a whole new light.
It's like you're literally rewiring your brain for happiness.
Okay, so we've covered forgiveness, self-discovery, silencing the inner critic. But Odetta doesn't stop there. She dives headfirst into the importance of self-respect. And this is where things get really juicy.
Oh, this is where she shares that story about the married man, right?
The one and only, and trust me, folks, this is not your average self-help anecdote.
It's the one that really drove home the whole self-respect thing for me. Like, wow, this is what it looks like in action.
Okay, so set the scene for us. What happens?
So Odetta's having lunch with this very successful, very married man, and out of nowhere, he basically proposes that she become his mistress.
Hold up, wait a minute. Did he really just say that? Over lunch?
Oh, yeah, he went there. And it wasn't just a passing comment. He had it all planned out. The why, the how, the when.
I can't even imagine being in that situation. Talk about awkward.
Right. You'd think she'd be furious or at least storm out, but her reaction is not what you'd expect at all.
I'm on the edge of my seat here. What does she do?
She just looks at him, calm as can be, and starts asking him questions.
Questions like?
The tough kind. Like, if a hurricane hit, would you be with your wife and kids or with me?
Whoa, talk about cutting to the chase. I bet he wasn't expecting that.
Not at all. He was probably expecting her to be flattered or something, but Odetta wasn't playing that game. She knew her worth, and she refused to be anyone's second choice.
It's like she was saying, I'm not your side dish, honey. I'm the whole damn meal.
Exactly, and that's the essence of self-respect right there. It's about setting boundaries, demanding better treatment, and refusing to settle for anything less than you deserve.
So what happened next? Did Mr. Married Man learn his lesson?
You know, it's crazy. Odetta runs into this guy years later, and he tells her that he told his wife about the whole thing.
No way. What did she say?
Apparently, she was not too happy about it, but the kicker is this guy tells Odetta that what he admires most about her is her self-respect. He even admits that her questions forced him to confront some hard truths about himself.
Wow, that's actually kind of amazing. It's like, Odetta, unknowingly planted a seed of self-awareness in this guy simply by standing our ground.
It's true. And that's the power of self-respect. It not only empowers us, but it can also inspire others to do better, to be better.
Okay, so how do we cultivate this level of self-respect in our own lives? Because, let's be real, most of us aren't encountering marriage proposals turned life lessons at lunch.
That's a great question, and it's something Odetta addresses directly in her book. She talks about this idea of not negatively branding ourselves.
Negative branding, what does that even mean?
It's all those little labels we put on ourselves, often without even realizing it. I'm so awkward, I'm terrible at math, I'm just not good with people.
Oh my gosh, I am so guilty of this. I'm the queen of, I'm so bad with names, even though I've met the person like 5 times already.
Right, but the thing is, those labels, even if we say them jokingly, have power. They can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
It's like we're manifesting our own insecurities. We tell ourselves we're bad at something, so we avoid it, and then we never give ourselves the chance to improve.
And that's what Odetta wants us to break free from. She's like, enough with the negative self-talk. Instead of focusing on what we're not, she wants us to shift our attention to our strengths, those qualities that make us uniquely awesome.
It's about recognizing and celebrating those qualities instead of letting our perceived flaws define us.
Absolutely. In fact, Odetta has this awesome exercise in her book where she challenges you to write down 10 positive things about yourself.
10 positive things. Okay, that might take me a minute, but I'm always down for a good self-love challenge.
It's amazing what happens when you actually sit down and do the exercise. We're so used to focusing on what we're not that we forget about all the amazing things that we already are.
It's so true. We get so caught up in the, oh, I wish I was better at this or that we miss out on celebrating the awesome sauce that's already there.
Totally. And Odetta's point is this list isn't about vanity. It's about building a foundation of self-awareness. It's about having those qualities top of mind for those times when that inner critic comes knocking.
So it's like a self-esteem first aid kit.
Right,
You whip it out and bam.
Yeah.
Instant reminder of your awesomeness.
Exactly. Like your own personal hype squad that you can carry around in your back pocket.
I love it. Now, I'm also wondering, how does she address our, less than perfect qualities? Because let's be real, we all have them. Does she say just ignore them, pretend they don't exist?
That's what's so great about Odetta's approach. It's real. She's like, yeah, you're going to have areas where you can grow, but don't let them define you. It's about approaching those flaws with curiosity instead of judgment.
So instead of being like, ugh, I'm so bad at this, it's more like, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this?
Exactly. It's that growth mindset in action. It's realizing that we're all works in progress, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's what makes life interesting.
I love that. So we're embracing our imperfections, we're cheering on our strengths, but I'm also curious about how this whole self-respect thing shows up in our relationships with others.
Oh, that's a big one. And Odetta does not shy away from it. She talks a lot about the importance of boundaries.
Boundaries. That's something I'm still working on.
Same here. It's a constant work in progress, but Odetta makes a really good point. She says that when you set clear boundaries, you're not being difficult, you're actually practicing self-love.
It's about honoring yourself and what you're willing to tolerate.
Absolutely. And what's amazing is that when you set those boundaries, you actually attract people who respect them, people who value you for who you are and what you stand for.
It's like you're sending a signal out into the universe that says, hey, I respect myself, and I expect the same in return.
Exactly. And that, my friend, is a beautiful thing.
So we've covered forgiveness, self-discovery, boundaries, and we've even sprinkled in some humor along the way. Because, let's face it, life's too short to be serious all the time. But I think the big question now is, how do we actually put all this wisdom into practice?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think the key is to start small. Pick 1 or 2 things from Odetta's book that really resonate with you and try incorporating them into your daily life.
So instead of doing a complete life overhaul, it's about those small, sustainable changes that over time make a big difference.
Exactly. It's like building any new habit. Be patient with yourself, be consistent, and celebrate those small victories along the way.
I like that. So where do we start? What's one tangible thing our listeners can do today to start flexing that self-love muscle?
Well, remember that list of 10 positive qualities we were talking about? That's actually a great place to begin.
Okay, so grab a pen and paper, folks. Time to unleash your inner cheerleader.
Don't overthink it. Just let it flow. What are you good at? What do you love about yourself? What makes you uniquely you?
And once we have this list, what do we do with it?
This is the important part. You keep it somewhere, you can see it regularly, and anytime that inner critic starts to creep in, pull out that list and remind yourself of all the amazing things that make you, you.
I love that. It's like a secret weapon against self-doubt.
Exactly. It's a reminder that you are worthy, you are capable, and you are amazing just the way you are.
It's about shifting that focus from what we're not to all the amazing things we already are. And speaking of amazing, you know what else can be incredibly helpful on this self-love journey?
What's that?
Surrounding yourself with your own personal cheer squad. People who lift you up, celebrate your wins, and offer a shoulder to cry on when you need it.
Yes. Building a supportive community is essential because, let's be real, self-love isn't always easy, and there will be times when you need a little extra support and encouragement. Having those people in your corner can make all the difference.
Absolutely. It's about creating that safe haven where you can be yourself, flaws and all. And speaking of flaws, I'm curious, does Odetta talk about how to deal with those areas where we want to grow and improve? Because self-love isn't about pretending to be perfect, right?
You're so right. Self-love is about accepting yourself as you are, imperfections and all, while also being open to growth and transformation.
Yeah.
It's like that beautiful paradox of self-acceptance and self-improvement.
And when it comes to those areas where we want to grow, how does Odetta say we should approach them?
With curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of beating yourself up for your shortcomings, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to become a stronger, wiser version of myself?
It's like turning those so-called flaws into stepping stones on our journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. And you know, it's interesting how this all connects back to Odetta's initial point about forgiveness. Just as we need to forgive ourselves for our past mistakes, we also need to forgive ourselves for our imperfections, those areas where we're still a work in progress.
It's about extending that same compassion and understanding to ourselves that we would offer a loved one.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, we are all just doing the best we can with what we have. And when we can approach ourselves with that same level of love and acceptance, that's when real transformation happens.
It's about embracing the journey, imperfections and all, and trusting that we're exactly where we need to be. It's like we're all just figuring things out as we go, and it's okay. We're all in good company, right?
Exactly. And when we can remember that, when we can embrace that shared humanity, it makes the whole self-love journey a little less daunting, a little more, hey, we're all in this together.
And there's something really beautiful about that, isn't there? It's like we're all part of this giant, messy, wonderful tapestry of humanity.
I love that image. And, you know, it makes me think about something really important that Odetta emphasizes throughout her book. Self-love isn't a destination, it's a journey.
It's not like we reach this magical point where we're like, boom, I've arrived. I am now the self-love queen. And then we could just kick back and relax.
Right. If only it were that easy. But yeah, it's an ongoing process. It's about showing up for ourselves every day, even when we don't feel like it. It's about making choices that align with our values, even when it's hard.
It's like anything else in life that's worth having: relationships, careers. That perfect cup of coffee, it takes effort and consistency.
So true. And just like anything else, there will be days when it feels effortless, when you're just riding that self-love wave. And then there will be days when you're like, ugh, can I just get a break from myself already?
Oh, tell me about it. Those days when that inner critic comes back with a vengeance and you're like, dude, I thought we were cool.
Exactly. But that's where those self-love tools come in handy.
It's like having a whole arsenal of self-care weapons at your disposal. That list of positive affirmations, a calming meditation practice, a phone call with your most supportive friend.
Or maybe just a really good piece of chocolate, whatever works for you.
Exactly. The key is to find what works for you and to be consistent with it.
And to be patient with yourself. It's a journey, remember. There will be bumps along the way, but that's okay. Just keep showing up for yourself, keep learning, keep growing.
So well said. And, you know, as we wrap up this deep dive into Odetta's wisdom, I'm curious, what are you taking away from this conversation?
Oh, that's a big question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is the power of self-compassion. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a loved one, because we deserve that kindness just as much as anyone else.
That's so beautifully said. And for our listeners, what's one small step you can take today to cultivate a little more self-love in your life? What's one tiny act of kindness you can do for yourself?
You don't have to have it all figured out. Just start where you are. Maybe it's taking 5 minutes to enjoy a cup of tea in silence, or maybe it's finally booking that doctor's appointment you've been putting off. Whatever it is, make it something that nourishes your mind, body, or soul.
Because you deserve to feel good inside and out. And remember, you are worthy of love and respect, just as you are.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with Odetta's wise words to ponder. No regrets, just lessons. May we all embrace our journeys, celebrate our wins, and approach ourselves and each other with love, compassion, and a healthy dose of humor.
Until next time, keep shining your light. And remember, you got this.
So am I.